Someone once said I needed to rethink my direction in life. I took that seriously, focused on building skills and expanding opportunities. Months later, the same people noticed the results and reached out with a different perspective on the path I had chosen. You're 26 and still living like you're in college. When are you going to grow up? The words hit me across the dinner table like a slap. I looked up from my plate at Alex's mother, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a wine glass, her expression a mixture of concern and condescension. Mom, please, Alex started, but her mother raised a hand. No, sweetheart. Someone needs to say it. You're building a life, thinking about your future. He's what? Still working at that startup that barely pays rent. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. I was 26, sitting in a restaurant I couldn't afford, wearing a button-down I'd ironed specifically for this dinner. Alex and I had been together for 3 years. Her family had money. Old money. The kind that came with expectations. The startup is growing, I said, keeping my voice steady. We just secured another round of funding. Funding. Her mother said the word like it tasted bad. And when does that translate to stability? To a real salary? To the kind of future my daughter deserves? Alex's father hadn't said a word, but his silence felt like agreement. I think we should talk about this later, Alex said quietly, her hand finding mine under the table. But her grip felt weak, uncertain. There's nothing wrong with ambition, her brother Daniel added from across the table. But there's also nothing wrong with being realistic. Tech startups fail 90% of the time. That's just statistics. He worked in finance, wore suits that cost more than my monthly rent, drove a car I'd only seen in magazines. I believe in what we're building, I said. Belief doesn't pay mortgages, Alex's mother replied. It doesn't provide security. The rest of dinner was awkward small talk and pointed silences. Alex apologized in the car afterward, but her apology felt hollow. They're just worried about me, she said. They want to make sure I'm taken care of. And you think I can't take care of you? She didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. I think you're trying, she finally said. I think you're working hard. But maybe they have a point about being realistic. We drove home in silence. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. The words kept replaying in my head. Grow up. Be realistic. Real future. The startup wasn't just a job to me. It was everything I'd been working toward since graduating. We were building something innovative, something that could actually change how people interacted with technology. But we were also burning through cash, working 80-hour weeks, living on ramen and ambition. My salary was barely enough to cover my tiny studio apartment and basic expenses. I'd been telling myself it was temporary, that the sacrifice would be worth it. But Alex's family had planted a seed of doubt. The next few weeks were strained. Alex started making comments. Small things at first. Maybe you should look at other opportunities. Just as a backup. Daniel mentioned his company is hiring. The benefits are incredible. My friend Veronica's boyfriend just got promoted. They're looking at houses now. Each comment was a small cut, but they added up. Then came the dinner with her friends. 6 of us around a table at some upscale bistro in the city. Tyler, Veronica, Hannah, and Hannah's boyfriend Chris. All of them had corporate jobs, investment portfolios, plans for the future. So what is it your company does again? Tyler asked, swirling his bourbon. I explained our platform, the problem we were solving, the market potential. Interesting, he said in a tone that meant the opposite. And you're not worried about the big players moving into that space. We have advantages they don't, I said. We're more agile, more innovative. But less capitalized, Chris added. I've seen this before. Small companies with good ideas get crushed by corporations with resources. Or they get acquired, Veronica chimed in. Which I guess is the goal, right? Build something just good enough to sell. Alex laughed, but it sounded forced. He's passionate about it, she said, defending me weakly. That counts for something. Passion's great, Hannah said. But at some point, you need to think practically. I mean, we're not 22 anymore. We're at the age where we should be building real stability. The conversation moved on, but I felt like I was watching from outside myself. These were Alex's people, her world, and I clearly didn't fit in it. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. We were at her apartment, and she'd been quiet all evening. We need to talk, she finally said. Those 4 words every relationship dreads. I've been thinking a lot about us. About our future. I already knew where this was going. I love you, she continued. But I don't know if we want the same things anymore. Or if we ever did. Because of my job. Because of your priorities. You're so focused on this startup, on this dream, that you're not seeing the reality of where we are in life. I'm 27. I want to start thinking about marriage, about buying a place, about building a real life together. And you don't think we can do that? She looked at me with something like pity. Can we? Honestly, you're barely making enough to support yourself. You work constantly. You're always one bad quarter away from the company folding. That's not the foundation I want to build a life on. So your family was right. I need to grow up and get a real job. Don't make this about them. But it is about them. This is their voice coming out of your mouth. Maybe they see things clearly that I've been too close to see. The argument escalated from there. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. By the end of the night, 3 years were over. She kept the apartment, and I moved my stuff out over the following week. Each box I packed felt like admitting defeat. I moved back into my studio, which suddenly felt even smaller and more depressing. My coworkers noticed I was off, but I threw myself into work even harder. What else did I have? But something had shifted inside me. The doubts her family and friends had planted were growing. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was being naive, chasing a dream while life passed me by. I started having conversations with our CEO about the company's trajectory, about realistic timelines for profitability. The answers weren't encouraging. We were making progress, but slowly. Too slowly. One night, alone in my apartment, I made a decision. If people were going to judge me by conventional metrics of success, then I needed to redefine what success meant for me. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to myself that I was capable of more. I started taking online courses at night. Data science, machine learning, advanced programming. I reached out to former professors, to industry contacts, to anyone who might offer guidance. I began treating my career like a strategic campaign rather than a passion project. I attended networking events, even though I hated them. I updated my resume, even though I wasn't actively job hunting. I started writing technical blog posts, building my presence in the industry. 3 months after the breakup, a former colleague reached out. His company was hiring for a senior engineering role. The salary was triple what I was making. I almost dismissed it immediately out of loyalty to the startup. But then I remembered Alex's mother's words. When are you going to grow up? I took the interview. Then another. And another. The job was at a mid-sized tech company, stable but still innovative. They were impressed by my startup experience, by the systems I'd built, by my technical blog. They made an offer I couldn't refuse. I gave my notice at the startup. My coworkers understood, even if they were disappointed. The CEO shook my hand and told me I was making a smart move. That hurt more than I expected. The new job was different. Structure, resources, a team that wasn't held together by pizza and hope. I had a 401k, health insurance that actually covered things, a salary that let me breathe. I moved into a better apartment, started going to the gym regularly, bought clothes that fit properly. Small things, but they added up to feeling like a different person. I kept taking courses, kept building skills. 6 months in, I led a project that saved the company significant money and improved our platform's performance by 40%. I got promoted, then promoted again. Within a year of leaving the startup, I was making more than Daniel in finance. I wasn't doing it for Alex or her family. I was doing it for myself, proving that I could play their game and win, but also proving that I could build the stability everyone said I lacked while still maintaining the innovation and passion that drove me. I started speaking at industry conferences, got approached by recruiters weekly, turned down offers from major tech companies because I was happy where I was, built an investment portfolio, started thinking about buying property. The person I'd become was unrecognizable from who I'd been during that awful dinner. Then, 18 months after the breakup, I got a message. It was from Alex. Hey, I know it's been a while. I saw you spoke at TechCon last week. That's amazing. Congrats on everything. I'd love to catch up if you're open to it. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to reply with something cutting. But I'd grown past pettiness. Thanks. Sure, we can grab coffee. We met at a place downtown, neutral territory. She looked the same but different. Tired, maybe. Less confident. You look great, she said, and there was something wistful in her voice. Thanks. You too. We made small talk for a few minutes, dancing around why we were really there. I've been following your career, she finally said. Everyone has. You've done incredibly well. I got lucky. Right opportunities at the right time. Don't diminish it. What you've accomplished is impressive. My brother mentioned you're making senior engineer money now. Maybe more. There it was. The real reason for coffee. Daniel talks about me. Everyone does. You've become kind of a success story in our circle. The guy who went from startup to stability, who figured it out. I sipped my coffee, waiting. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she continued. About us. About how things ended. I think maybe I was too harsh. Too influenced by what other people thought. Your family, you mean? Yes. And my friends. Everyone had opinions about what I should want, what kind of partner I should be with. And I listened to them instead of trusting my own judgment. And now I see what you were capable of all along. I see that you just needed time to get there. And I wonder if I made a mistake letting you go. The old me would have felt vindicated, would have wanted this moment, wanted her to see what she'd lost. But the person I'd become felt nothing but sadness for both of us. Alex, I didn't change to win you back. I know. That's what makes it even more impressive. You did this for yourself. I did it because you and your family made me question everything about myself. Whether that was fair or not, it pushed me to reevaluate my path. And you were right that I needed direction. But the direction I chose was mine, not theirs. So where does that leave us? There is no us anymore. That ended when you decided I wasn't enough. But what if I was wrong? What if we could try again, now that we're both in a different place? I looked at her, really looked at her. 3 years we'd spent together. And she'd never believed in me the way I'd needed her to. I don't think you were wrong, I said carefully. I think you were honest about what you needed. Security, stability. Those are valid things to want. But you needed them more than you needed me. And that's okay. That's not fair, isn't it? You let your family's opinion matter more than our relationship. You let your friend's success make you feel like I was failing. You never once defended me in a way that mattered. Her eyes started to water. I was scared. I was 27 and watching all my friends move forward while I felt stuck. And now you're 29, watching me move forward while you feel stuck again. The words came out harsher than I intended. I'm not stuck, she said defensively. I have a good job. I'm doing fine. I know. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair either. We sat in uncomfortable silence. I've been seeing someone, she finally said. Nothing serious. But he's in finance, like Daniel. Stable. Exactly what I thought I wanted. But he's boring. God, he's so boring. Every conversation is about markets and portfolios and the same restaurants and the same people. And I find myself thinking about you, about how you used to talk about your work with so much passion, how you saw possibilities instead of just security. You can't have it both ways, Alex. You can't want the passion and the portfolio. Or you can, but you need someone who already has both. That's not who I was when we were together. But it's who you are now. Now doesn't matter. Then mattered. When you needed to believe in me, you couldn't. And I don't blame you for that. But I can't forget it either. 2 days after coffee with Alex, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this the same guy who used to date my daughter? Alex's mother. I almost hung up. Yes, this is him. I wanted to call and congratulate you on your success. Daniel's been telling me about your career trajectory. Very impressive. Thank you. I also wanted to apologize for my comments at that dinner. I was too harsh, too quick to judge. I see now that you were simply on a different timeline than I expected. The words should have felt good. They didn't. Mrs. Foster, can I ask you something? Of course. If I was still working at that startup, would you be calling me now? She hesitated. That's a complicated question. Not really. It's very simple. If I hadn't gotten the corporate job, if I hadn't made the money, if I was still passionate but poor, would you be apologizing? I think you know the answer to that. I do. That's why this call doesn't mean anything. You're not apologizing because you were wrong. You're calling because I proved you wrong. There's a difference. Young man, I'm trying to extend an olive branch here. I appreciate that, but I don't need it. I needed support 3 years ago. I needed someone to believe in me when it wasn't easy or obvious. What I don't need now is validation from people who only respect success they can quantify. Alex is miserable, you know. She won't say it, but I can tell. That's between you and her. I'm not responsible for her happiness. But you could be, if you gave her another chance. Mrs. Foster, with respect, your opinion on my relationships is what helped end the last one. I won't be making decisions based on what you or anyone else thinks anymore. I hung up before she could respond. The next few weeks brought more messages. Veronica reached out, saying she'd heard I was doing well and wanted to reconnect. Tyler sent a LinkedIn request with a note about networking opportunities. Hannah texted saying their company was hiring and I'd be perfect for a role. Everyone wanted a piece of the success story. No one had wanted a piece of the struggle. I politely declined all of them. My life had moved forward. I'd started dating someone from work, a brilliant engineer named Natalie who understood the balance between ambition and stability because she'd walked the same path. She knew who I was before the success and who I'd become after. That mattered. One evening, about 6 months after the coffee with Alex, I was at an industry event. I saw Daniel across the room. He saw me too and made his way over. "Hey man, long time. Heard you're killing it." "Doing well, thanks. Listen, I owe you an apology. That dinner, the things I said about startups and statistics. I was being a dick. You were being honest about how you saw things. Maybe, but I was also being condescending. You proved me wrong, and I respect that. Thanks. Alex talks about you sometimes. She really regrets how things ended. That's something she needs to work through on her own." "Fair enough. But for what it's worth, I think you two could be good together now. Now that you're on more equal footing." That phrase made something snap inside me. "Daniel, we were always on equal footing. That was never the problem. The problem was that people like you and your family only measure worth by bank accounts and job titles. I was the same person then as I am now. I just had different circumstances." "That's not entirely true, though. You've changed. You've grown. I've achieved more by conventional metrics. But the core of who I am, the work ethic, the intelligence, the drive, that was always there. Your family just couldn't see it through the dollar signs. Look, I'm trying to make amends here. I don't need amends. I needed respect when I had nothing to prove. What I have now isn't something I'm interested in sharing with people who only showed up for the victory lap." He looked taken aback. "That's pretty harsh." "Is it? You told me to my face that what I was doing would fail. Your mother told me to grow up. Your sister broke up with me because I didn't fit the mold of what you all thought success should look like. Now that I do fit that mold, suddenly I'm worthy of your time and respect? No thanks." I walked away from that conversation feeling lighter than I had in years. The last piece of baggage from that chapter of my life was gone. A few months later, Alex showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up, and I almost told him to send her away. But I was curious. When I opened the door, she looked different. Older. Sadder. "I know I shouldn't be here," she said, "but I needed to see you one more time." "Why?" "Because I can't move on until I say this. I was wrong. Not just about us, but about everything. I let other people's expectations dictate what I thought I wanted. I let fear of judgment from my family and friends override what I felt for you. And I've regretted it every single day since." "Okay. That's it. Just okay. What do you want me to say, Alex? That I forgive you?" "I do. I forgave you a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation." "Why not? We were good together. We could be good again. We were good until we weren't. And the reason we weren't good is because you needed someone I couldn't be at that time. The tragedy isn't that we broke up. It's that you couldn't see past the temporary circumstances to the person underneath. But I see you now. You see the success, the money, the status. Those are the things your world values. So now I have value to you. But the person who built those things, who worked 80-hour weeks at a startup that barely paid rent, who believed in himself when no one else did, you walked away from that person." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Doesn't everyone deserve a second chance? Not when the lesson they learned is that they were right to judge based on superficial metrics. You didn't have an epiphany about what really matters. You just recalibrated your judgment to include me now that I meet your criteria. That's not true, isn't it? If I lost this job tomorrow, if I had to start over, would you still be here?" She didn't answer. "That's what I thought. Please don't do this. I love you. You love who I've become. You never loved who I was." She left crying, and I felt terrible. But I also felt free. The validation I'd been seeking when I first started improving myself had transformed into something healthier. I no longer needed their approval or recognition. I'd built something for myself, by myself. And the person I'd become in the process was someone I actually liked. Natalie and I got serious. She met my family, I met hers. Her parents treated me with respect from day one, asking about my work because they were genuinely interested, not because they were evaluating my worth as a person. That's what healthy relationships looked like. 6 months later, I got headhunted by a major tech company for a director-level position. The salary was absurd. The benefits were incredible. The opportunity was everything I'd worked toward. I accepted. At the welcome reception, I ran into someone from my old startup. We caught up on the company's progress. They'd been acquired 3 months earlier by a major player. Everyone who'd stayed through the acquisition made significant money from their equity. "You left right before it happened," he said. "Bad timing. Maybe, but I don't regret it. I learned what I needed to learn, and I moved on when it was right for me. No bitterness about missing out on the payout. None. Different path, same destination. I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I meant it. Success wasn't about proving Alex and her family wrong. It wasn't about the money or the title or the validation. It was about becoming someone I respected, someone who made decisions based on his own values rather than other people's expectations. The journey from that awful dinner to this moment had transformed me in ways that had nothing to do with my career. I'd learned to set boundaries, to value people who saw me as more than my achievements, to trust my own judgment even when everyone else disagreed. Those lessons were worth more than any salary or promotion. 3 years after the breakup, on the anniversary of that dinner, I treated myself to the same expensive restaurant where Alex's family had torn me apart. I sat at the bar alone, ordered the most expensive scotch they had, and toasted to the person I'd been and the person I'd become. Halfway through my drink, I heard a familiar voice. "Is this seat taken?" I turned to see Alex standing there. "It's a free country." She sat down, ordered her own drink. "I'm not here to beg or plead or ask for another chance," she said. "I'm here because I saw you come in, and I realized I never properly thanked you." For what? For showing me that sometimes the people we dismiss are the ones we should have believed in most. For teaching me that potential matters more than current circumstances. For being dignified in success when you could have been petty. "You're welcome. I'm engaged," she said, showing me a ring. "To someone kind and stable and exactly what I thought I wanted. But he's not you. And I've made peace with that. With the fact that I had something special and didn't appreciate it until it was gone. I hope you're happy. I'm content, which is probably the best I deserve after the choices I made." We sat in silence for a moment. "For what it's worth," I finally said, "I don't think you're a bad person. I think you were scared and let other people's opinions matter too much. We were young. We made mistakes. The important thing is learning from them." "Have you learned from them?" "Every day. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can build the life I want on my own terms. That success means different things to different people, and the only opinion that matters is my own. Those are good lessons." She finished her drink and stood to leave. "I'm glad you're doing well. Really, you deserve everything you've achieved. So do you, Alex." I mean that. After she left, I sat at that bar for another hour, thinking about the journey, about how sometimes the people who hurt us give us the greatest gift, the motivation to become who we're meant to be. Not for them, not to prove them wrong, but for ourselves. I finished my drink and walked out into the night, knowing that whatever came next, I was ready for it, on my own terms, with my own definition of success. And that made all the difference.